know, will there be TRC this evening
Yes.
at 8?
Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Welcome. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, shehakol nהיה b'dbarei.
Amen.
L'chaim, l'chaim, everybody. L'chaim, l'chaim, v'rocha. Good tavach, shavua tov. Welcome, one and all. We start off the week with new life from the Torah teachings, from the Parsha. We start a new book, the second book, Shmois, Exodus. And of course, much to learn from there. Much to learn. So in this book is where we are forged into a Jewish nation. Right now, we're in Egypt, in slavery, as we learned in today's Chumash and Rashi. And of course, after the slavery, ultimately, the Exodus, leaving Egypt and becoming the nation of Israel. What does it mean to be the nation of Israel? Well, of course, we've survived. We're still here. All others have come and gone. Those who wanted to destroy us, as the Egyptians, the Persians, the Babylonians first, and the Persians, the Greeks, the Romans, they've all come, they've all tried. We have survived. Why have we survived? What is the power of our survival? What is that power? Is it something inherent in who we are? Is it something that we've been given? Is it because we're an eternal people? So of course we're going to survive. And if we are an eternal people, what does that mean? Is that literally? Is that figuratively? How do we understand that? And moreover, if we are collectively as such, does that make us individually eternal, immortal? Or is that just a collective whole of the entirety of the Jewish people? Heavy-duty discussion here. Chaim. Welcome to one and all. Let's get right into it. So this week's Parsha tells us about the birth of Moshe Rabbeinu, of Moses. And, of course, Moshe will be the redeemer of the Jewish people. He will be the one who the Torah is given through him, of him, by him. Absolutely. And he's a righteous person, but there's something unique about him and about his birth that we don't find elsewhere. Let's get into this. Amazing. I don't see it on my screen. So much for that. Let's see if this one works. Okay. All right, let's try this again. So much. So much. Wait a second. That's, I don't know what's going on over here. That's not working. You need, let's see if this one's going to work. Ah, there we go. All right. Negaita Matzasa. Sometimes you just gotta try harder. Okay, this is from the Talmud. It says the moment Moses was born, the entire home filled with light. We know this from the juxtaposition of two passages. One verse states, and she, his mother, saw, and Moshe was good. In another verse, it states, and God saw that the light was good. So the Talmud is teaching us that Moshe's goodness was immediately noticeable at birth. In other words, the natural state of a child is that the body obscures the soul. And the child is, of course, body sensitive and not soul sensitive. We get that. Right? That's why we all cry when we come into this world. Because it's a bit of a shocker, or we're hungry, or the light was too bright, or whatever it is, right? But not by Moshe, the body did not obstruct his soul. His soul was alive and parent and real and authentically there. It was good. So very nice. That's beautiful. But as we know, the Torah comes from the word Hayrah. It's a lesson. What lesson do I have from this? The Moshe Rabbeinu was this. Beautiful. But that's not talking to me. That's not a lesson for me, personally. I'm not Moshe Rabbeinu. I'm not going to be ever someone like him. So the fact that the Torah is telling me that his soul and body were transparent one to the other is wonderful, but that's never going to be me. I wasn't born that way. So what is this to instruct me? Simple question. So we're going to go away from this question and examine the nature of truth. We have a fascinating reading from the Talmud, Jerusalem Talmud. The evil empire flourishes when Jews hurl the Torah to the ground. What is the source? And you shall cast the truth to the ground, and it will do and prosper. From Daniel. Truth can only refer to Torah, as it's written. Buy truth and never sell wisdom, ethics, and understandings. From Proverbs. So this reading is teaching us that without Torah, the wicked regimes will dominate the Jewish people. If Jews stay faithful to Torah, they gain protection and autonomy. But there's a detail over here that's very important. It stands out from this. And that is that the Torah is the only truth. That's what it says here. Truth can only refer to Torah. Meaning everything else is false. So when we embrace truth, falsehood loses its power. We abandon it. Falsehood rises and beats us down. Okay. So the question that we need to understand is, why does the text describe the entire world as false, grounding its message in the concept of truth? Torah is truth, everything else is false. If the Jews stay true to Torah, well, why not just, simply say that the more we are um, true to our commitment to Torah, the more the God is there for us and protects us. Why is it that the world is compared to falsehood and the Torah is truth? Why are we using those very emphatic black and white terms, if you will? So let's explain. Let's explain the big lie from Rab Tzaddik HaKohen. Text number 4. This world is called a fraudulent world, for falsehood is another name for things that are transient. In other words, subject to termination. All worldly delights are transient, as it's written. For at a time of death, one cannot take anything or everything with them. Look at this. So look at the absoluteness over here. Truth is something that doesn't change. If something is real, it cannot change. Otherwise, it's not real. That means to say, even when if it only in the future will become extinct, what Reb Tzadok is saying over here is even when it is seemingly real in the moment, it's not. It's not real. Why? Because if in the future it won't exist, that means it's not truly real now. It doesn't truly exist. It's not authentically truth. Hi. This truth is eternal and unchanging. As King Solomon says in Proverbs, the true tongue will be established forever, but a lying tongue just for a moment. Say. Me? So the Ralbag explains, what does this mean? Something true will always be correct and proper. It cannot be reversed at any point. However, something false can happen to exist for a little while, but it is fleeting. It cannot last long. We have this idea in Jewish law that to use water for back in the day when someone became impure because of coming in contact with a human corpse, they had to used to go through a ritual purification, Kiddush Mechatas, the red heifer, and everything that's involved. And that they needed what's called living waters to use for the purification. What's living waters? Waters that are always a continuous flow of water. If there isn't a continual flow of water, it's not considered a flowing waterway that could be used for this purification process. So if once in 7 years there was a stream of water and it would cease to flow, even when it's flowing, it's not called a flowing water. It's sort of like living on borrowed time. It's called mayim amechavzim, lying waters. They're a lie. It's not really flowing water. Why? Because it won't be that way all the time. In other words, just like you can't be half pregnant, you can't have a half a truth. or 3/4 of a truth. True is not something subjective. It's not that it is my truth and your truth, you have your truth. That's not truth. That's just a feel good, thing that in society that we just want to be good with each other and or good with myself. So then I have my truth and you have your truth. That's not truth. Truth has to be something that was true yesterday, today, and tomorrow. As actually the word emes in Hebrew, Aleph Mem Taf as it's spelled, is the first letter in the Aleph base. Mem is the middle letter of the Aleph base, and Taf is the last letter of the Aleph base. It has to be from beginning, middle to end. It has to be at all times. Otherwise, it's not truth. So then what's not true? Or rather, what is, I won't actually go into what's in truth yet. We'll get there. Okay, let's take this argument to its fullest extent then. So I guess we could say this cup is not really truth. Not even now a cup. Why? Because at one point in the future, it's, turn into energy, turn to something else. It won't be a cup. So it's not even really a cup now. Let's just take this argument to a greater extent. How far can we take this argument? Well, anything that's subject to change is false. Right? In other words, it's not the truth. Let's see what that means. The Talmud tells us, Reb Katina said the world will exist for 6,000 years, followed by destruction, as it is written, and God will be exalted and alone on that day. Ooh. Now, what is it? It doesn't mean that the world will be destroyed. It just means that the nature of the world will not be as it is now in the times of Mashiach. Right? We're 5786. Right? That's where we are. Meaning, the world will change. What does it mean that it will change? The Ben Ish Chai says that doesn't mean that that there will be destruction, desolation. God forbid. Rather, the natural law that will prevail for 6,000 years will end. It will be replaced by new, much improved, beautiful environment with no negative properties. There will be no grief, mourning, suffering, or negativity. Instead, we will enjoy only goodness and wonderful, healthy delights. Times of Mashiach, right? So what does that mean? It means that this world will not be the way it is now. That means this world is called what? A world of lies. Right? Because truth doesn't change. Well, this world is not truth. Inherently so. How so? Well, very simply, it covers over the truth of God. That's why in times of Mashiach, that the world will change in such a way that the laws of nature that are now nature in Hebrew, teva. Teva means to conceal, to consume, not consume, to cover over, right? And that's what nature does. Covers over, as klipa covers over is a shell that covers over the delicious, vital fruit on the inside. So likewise, the world covers over on the vitality of God that's on the inside. So on the exterior, this world is not the truth. Whoa, that's pretty powerful. Because this world will change. You thought death and taxes are the only truth? That doesn't change? Wrong. Sorry. L'chaim. All right. So we got a bit of a dilemma. We're living in a world of lies over here. The world itself is a lie. Meaning it's not eternal. The nature of the world is not eternal. The nature of the world that the big fish eats the small fish, that it's a dog-eat-dog world, it's a rat race. No. As we just said here, there'll be goodness and wonderful, healthy delights. No more grief, suffering, negativity. All right. First of all, how are we going to get there? And secondly, that's it. We are groping in the dark. Never that this world is such a, falsehood. It is, except for one thing. Torah, by contrast, is never subject to change. Only God and his Torah, entirely true and unchanging. As Maimonides writes, it is clear and explicit the Torah and the commandments remain forever without change, subtraction, or addition. Can't be an add to it. Can't say, oh, tefillin, with 4 compartments, we want to be holier than thou. We're going to add a 5th compartment. No. Can't. Why? Well, if God can't change, the Torah being one with God, it cannot change. The Abarbanel writes, the divine Torah that is in our hands is eternal. It cannot change at any time. This is because the blessed God created it according to his unlimited wisdom. The Torah is relevant to every person at every time because God's knowledge is not limited to any particular time frame. Not subject to change. God in the Torah puts his very soul, he puts his very soul into the Torah, his very being into the Torah. And it's his wisdom. His wisdom is one with him, right? It's one with God, his wisdom. So therefore the Torah, God's wisdom can never change, just as God doesn't change. Does that make sense? So what's the outcome of this? What does that mean? Well, this explains now what we spoke about earlier, that when the Jewish people embrace Torah, no empire can overcome them, overpower us. Because everything is fleeting in this world. Everything is false in this world as a result, except for the Torah. So when the Jews fulfill Torah, the study of Torah, the fulfillment of its mitzvahs, we are a possessor of the truth. Falsehood has no power, no dominion over truth. Falsehood can never prevail. Only when we're not true to it, then, God forbid, there's a possibility of falsehood and the powers that be having some kind of dominion over us. So this is the answer. We become an eternal nation through our connection to Torah by embracing, internalizing as its truth. We connect to that which is everlasting, and we can transcend the transient nature of the physical world. That's the nature the Torah gives us, the power that it gives us. As a result. So that's eternity of a people by their connection to Torah. Now, historically, this almost happened when we received the Torah on Mount Sinai. We achieved immortality at that time. But what happened? We sinned afterwards with the sin of the golden calf, and we lost it. The Rebbe in this week's Sicha, Likutei Sichas, in volume 26, he writes, when God gave us the Torah, he liberated us from the grip of death. Right? Death is also a falsehood, meaning it's not eternal. By giving us the Torah here on earth, he endowed us with a measure of eternity. Even as we reside in physical bodies subject to aging and decay, we would live forever, free from the angel of death. However, this came undone when we worshiped the golden calf. For the Torah to imbue humans with eternality, it must be embodied in our physical experience. And since the golden calf introduced unholiness into our bodies, forming a barrier to our holiness, this prevented Torah from being absorbed into our body. So at Mount Sinai, our souls became a pure vehicle for the divine spark that's within us. Our soul and body were aligned. They were aligned. Our body was radiated with the soul. And therefore, there was no power of anything in this world over us. No nation, not even the angel of death. Not even the angel of death. That's eternal. But then we stooped down 40 days later with the worship of the golden calf. We lost that alignment of the body and soul with each other. And now we became mortal beings. And of course, what is our task now? To now, where then it was top down because God revealed himself to us from above. Now it has to be down up, bottoms up, that we have to now create that transparency of the body to its soul, that we gain eternity once again. I don't mean just eternity as a people, eternity, period. Chaim. So, eternal people we are, but that doesn't mean it's revealed. When is it revealed? When we're transparent to our source, our soul, our body's transparent to the soul. When we reconnect to Torah in a manner that the Torah is what guides and leads us, that transparency, then we will be openly, clearly an eternal nation. Okay. Let's now go back to Moshe Rabbeinu, to Moses. Let's go back to Moses. What do we learn something about Moses? He was something unique about him, right? At his birth, already, the house was filled with light, his light. Unique to him that we don't find elsewhere. For other righteous people, they got to work for them on themselves in a way that they become the righteous people that they are, right? And of course, when they become, we see that there's something, a different countenance, a different person that they are, right? They had to toil for it, to not allow the body to obscure the soul. But this is the uniqueness of Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses. He was born in a manner that the body was completely transparent to his soul. He emerged from his mother's womb with the light of the Torah filling the home. He was an infant, yet discernibly holy and lofty. Very unique. That's right. Rabbeinu Bachaya says, the meaning of the text, the entire home was filled with light, is that from the time of birth, Moshe was worthy of illuminating the entire world with Torah, that he would receive a Sinai. So what do we have here? We said that this world is what's this world? A lie. It's a sheker. Why? It's temporary. What's truth? Torah. Torah. It's one with God. It's God's wisdom. That's one with him. That's eternal. Who else is that way? Moshe Rabbeinu. In his birth, he is an embodiment of Torah already. That's truth. That's truth because he's constantly that way. Just from his birth, he's already it. So Torah is the embodiment of God's truth. Moshe Rabbeinu embodies it. To be constant from every angle is the property of truth, and that's what he is. If he would only have been a recipient sometime thereafter, a vessel for God's truth, then he wouldn't be truth. He wouldn't be truth. He may be a bearer of truth, but he's not the embodiment of truth himself. But because he's born this way, right? Because he's born this way, he is truth, period. Even those who fought against Moshe Rabbeinu in the story of Korach, and that they battle against him, saying he's not the man of truth, but because they're living a lie of this world, the sons of Korach afterwards recognized and they said, oh. Then what did they say? Moshe is truth, his Torah is truth, and we are frauds. Not just that Moshe bears the truth. I can bear the truth too, but that doesn't mean I'm truth. We can all be a bearer of truth, but that doesn't make me truth. Moshe Rabbeinu is truth himself. That's a very strong statement, right? Very strong statement. Is that clear? Yeah, folks, thumbs up. It's clear. Again, there's a uniqueness about Moshe Rabbeinu. Now, since he is this truth, of course, he lives up to the truth, and every fiber of his being devotes himself to Torah. So much so that we call him Moshe Rabbeinu, Moshe our teacher. We call it Torah's Moshe, the Torah of Moshe. How's it the Torah of Moshe? It's God's Torah. Because he's synonymous with it. He's one with it. How's he one with it? From his very birth. That's how he is the bearer of that truth. Whoa, that's pretty powerful. With this now, learn a fascinating idea. Was that it? Moshe Rabbeinu? One Jew who is the embodiment of truth. That's it. What happened to Joshua? Yoshua, the next leader. What happened to all the prophets? What happened to all the elders? What happened to all of the great people? Maimonides, Rashi, Baal Shem Tov, the Alter Rebbe, our Rebbe. What are they? So, in the Sikha, the Rebbe says, fascinating. Quoting from the Talmud, Talmud says Moshe never died. It says never died. What do you mean never died? As he stood and served God at Mount Sinai, so does he continue to stand and serve God today. Okay, what does that mean exactly? Moshe is the truth. Truth doesn't die. You hear that, folks? Truth can't die. So Moshe doesn't die. He's still serving. What does that mean, he's serving? So this is what the Rebbe tells us. You know, great people, when they pass away, their soul lives on. Their soul lives on. In a sense, they don't die either. We're saying something more here. Not just your soul lives on. The truth is, the soul lives on by every single one of us. And each and one of us have a legacy that lives on beyond us. But this is saying something much more. He actually lives, Moshe Rabbeinu, in a body, but not his. His body lives on in the body of the leaders that come thereafter. And therefore he lives on. The Rebbe, and the Sikha this week, our sages taught that Moshe never died. If his nature, even his physical nature, was truth, his earthly presence couldn't end and die. His earthly presence doesn't die. Truth is eternal. Even in the physical world, that is a world of lies, right? No, can't be. So we can explain the immortality of Moshe like this. Our sages spoke of an extension on Moshe in every generation from the Zohar. This means as Moshe's soul integrates into the leaders and the sages of each generation, his soul is especially present in the leading spiritual giant of the generation, for there is someone just like Moshe in every generation. There's a Moses of every generation. And the soul of Moshe integrates into the body of this leader. Whoa. So is Moshe alive? Absolutely. How? Because his soul is integrated into the body of this new leader. It doesn't mean that the person just fills the role of Moshe and he carries on his soul. No, he's carrying on his very being. His very being is now transferred from Moshe to Yoshua, Joshua. He became the new Moshe Rabbeinu. And after his passing to the next leader, why? Because Moshe is truth. From the very day he's born, he is truth. His soul, his body was already transparent to his soul. The house filled with the light of Torah. Now, of course, this is God-given. He didn't work on it. inherently in him, just like it's inherently in the Torah. As being the Torah is God's wisdom. God's wisdom is one with God. So this is inherently part of Moshe Rabbeinu, of who he is. And the Moshe Rabbeinu of every generation, inherently a part of them, because he carries on through them. How powerful is that? How powerful is that? All right. So that's that mean for me and you? What does that mean? So firstly, the more we are connected, hiskashrus, to the Moshe Rabbeinu of our generation, the more we're transparent in that connection, the more we're alive, the more we're truth. Now, we're not going to be a truth like Moshe Rabbeinu or the extension of Moshe Rabbeinu in every generation. We're not. Our body will not be perfectly transparent to our soul. The Rebbe is that way. His father-in-law, the previous Rebbe, was that way. His father, the Rebbe Rashab, was that way. His father, the Rebbe Marash, before him was that way. His father before him, the Tzemach Tzedek, was that way. Then the Mittler Rebbe, Alter Rebbe, Mizitcher Magid, the Baal Shem Tov, yes. These were the Moshe Rabbeinu of each generation from the last 9 generations, who were an extension of Moshe Rabbeinu, completely transparent to and aligned with their source, with God, with their soul. And the more we are transparent and aligned to them, right, the Moses of the generation, what does that mean? The more we're transparent. What does that mean? The more we align with the teachings of the Rebbe, the more with the game plan, if you will, of the Rebbe, of getting ready our generation for Mashiach and bringing everybody closer to Hashem through Torah and mitzvahs, for 613 commandments for fellow Jews, 7 Noachide laws for all of humanity. The more that we are connected to that, the more we become a bearer of truth, me at least, the more we express our individual eternal quality of our soul, which will no doubt effectively together as a people express the eternity of the Jewish people, as we see now more than ever, the eternity of the Jewish people and everything that has happened, this generation, the last couple of years in particular. And the more that we are transparent to and fulfill the nature of our soul, the nature of the teachings of the Torah that are the truth, the more we live that truth, that it becomes incorporated, a part of us. It's an interesting law that a Torah scholar It says a Torah teacher, when, you need to rise up when they walk into a room. Why? Why would you need to rise up? Because there's a smart person, because they're learned? No, it's because they become an embodiment of the truth of Torah. The more you become an embodiment of it, you are like a Torah. So therefore, those in a room that you walk into, to students in a classroom, the law is you stand for that person. That everyone would walk into the room, of course, everybody would stand. They're standing because he is transparent to his soul, transparent to his source, and aligned with Torah, and hence one with God. And therefore, we stand. Now, we are, again, we're not going to be the Rebbe, but the more we're aligned with the Rebbe, and following his path, the more we, at least on some level, are the bearers of truth. We contain truth. Not complete, but to be able to be a bearer of truth by living the teachings is what is our task. And when we live it in a way that is tefeach hamanas tefillah, that we're saturated with it, and therefore we can touch another person's life and saturate them, affect them in a way that they in turn are inspired, that they touch another life and bring another life closer to Hashem, to Torah mitzvahs, to the final redemption of Mashiach now. Any questions? Any comments? Any thoughts? Very powerful. Yeah, we're good. All right. Folks, you're not good, you're great. God bless you all. Beautiful. And
Thank you, Rabbi.
God bless. Thank you.
Thank
Good
you. Shabbat tov.
Thank you, Rabbi.